Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the September 4th meeting of the Burke County Board of Commissioners, pre-agenda meeting. We may get to hear a little music along the way. Maybe that's going to be okay. Let me ask you to be sure to silence your mobile devices if you have those with you. All of our commissioners are present. Our county manager, finance officer, Lance sitting in today for our clerk. Appreciate that. And JR, our attorney, present also. Remind you to use the microphone when you come to speak. If you have a matter to present today, please come to this table in front and push the button on the right so that the microphone will come on and you can be heard here and around the world. And so we'll all be able to hear you. Okay, with that brings us to item number 2, approval of the agenda today. Gentlemen, you've had the agenda in advance. I don't believe there are any changes. I'll entertain a motion to accept the agenda as presented.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Wayne. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. I believe that's all of us. We have a couple items for presentation today. First one will come from our sheriff. Recognition of Sergeant William Townsend for the Advanced Law Enforcement Certificate. Sheriff, good to see you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, and appreciate the opportunity that you give us to publicly recognize these officers who earn this certificate, advanced certificate. And we thank you for the opportunity that you have provided to reward deputies monetarily for that. So I look forward to presenting that at the commissioners meeting.
All right, thank you, Sheriff. Any questions for the sheriff on this matter? All right, hearing none, that'll remain on the agenda. Sheriff, we appreciate your doing that, and we're glad to recognize Sergeant Townsend.
Thank you, sir.
Item number 2, WPRTA, presentation of fixed bus route service. This will be presented by Camille Sterling with the COG, I believe. Right, wrong.
Mr. Chairman and members of the Board of Commissioners, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to you today about the new Burke routes that will begin on October 1st of 2018. This is Brian Horton. He is the transportation planner with the Western Piedmont Council of Governments, and he will begin the presentation, and then I will follow up with information regarding the marketing and the proposed logistics to start by October 1st.
Thank you. So this is really a momentous occasion. This route has been in development for the last 3 years. Nancy Taylor, head of works for, of course, Community Foundation Burke County, was a huge champion of that, but it's really bringing together of all partners across Burke County. And you can see those funders here, many of them local. All the towns and city of Morganton along the route are participating and contributing to the route. Our major grants, Appalachia Regional Commission and Kate Beat Reynolds Foundation, largely are focused on connecting people to medical services as well as employment. Those are the 2 largest funders. So we're achieving that with this grant. But ultimately, why we're doing this service is because this is to empower residents of Burke County. It helps those families with limited vehicles. You know, if you have just one car, helps that household out, getting to jobs, getting to training, getting to doctor's appointments. It's a lifeline. The funding has really come together, like I said, from a lot of philanthropic partners, as well as the towns. In fact, we obtained more grants than we thought we would, and so now at this time, we actually are looking at a 3-year pilot project. Since we started the grant process, the route has evolved slightly because of stakeholder input. We have met with all the towns and the city of Morganton, plus social service agencies, nonprofits, other groups, stakeholders along, like the hospital. You know, this goes from the Old Grace Hospital to Valdez Hospital. We've met with all those stakeholders, so the route has evolved a little bit over time. We now, as you can see, top is where we started, bottom is where we ended up. We go through Drexel. We've changed some of the routing in Morganton so we can better serve some low-income areas, some affordable housing areas. So that's how we've evolved the route. And in Morganton specifically, we're able to now serve more areas, go more places, more educational institutions. Now this service is not just a fixed route though, it will operate also as a hybrid service with deviation. What that means is people can call ahead and actually anywhere you see that pink, within 3/4 of a mile of the route, you can get deviation. You just have to call ahead for that. So there'll be many stops. In fact, today we just confirmed like 20 plus, almost 30 bus stops along the Morganton route alone. And those will serve many of the key destinations, but people can also have the flexibility to go off the route for drop off and pick up. This is the older slide. We since updated this, and we'll be giving you the new one for your commission meeting. Of course, that is September 17th, I believe. We meet with Town of Drexel and Town of Valdez both tonight. Town of Rutherford College on October 1st, and I think City Morganton September 10th. And so we have an extensive marketing plan. We actually will have a bus out at the Historic Morganton Festival this weekend, and we'll be working with, major employers, the hospital, a lot of the human resource offices and public information offices to help get this word out. Camille, do you want to speak any about the marketing plan?
The routes themselves will begin around 6 a.m. and end around 6 p.m. These routes consist of 4 different buses, 2 that will be operating in Morganton, 2 that will be operating from Morganton along Highway 70 through Drexel, Valdez, to Valdez Hospital, which is operated by the Carolinas Blue Ridge, and to Rutherford College, or the town of Rutherford College. We'll be stopping along the route and picking up people, and this route is for everyone. So this hybrid service is both the traditional fixed route service where people can have same-day service at a bus stop, and also, as Brian mentioned, the bus will deviate off the route 3/4 of a mile, because not everyone can make it to a bus stop or walk to a bus stop. And there's places in some of the cities and towns that there are no sidewalks. So for safety purposes, we want to be able to pick up those people as well. So we welcome everyone to give us a call for more information closer to the route at 828-465-7634, which is Greenway Public Transportation, and also to visit the website at mygreenway.org. The information about the route will be on there, the maps, the times, the schedules, and we have brought some brochures that we'll leave with Brian so that we can give those to you and you can take a look at those. These are a draft form. The final routes or bus schedules will be distributed within Morganton and along the routes to agencies, to the towns, to the counties, and to the city that is involved with this route, so that we would be able to disperse the information so that the information is available to everyone. They'll be in brochure holders, and we'd like to work with any agency that would like to have us drop off any of these brochures to them so that the community knows about the community route, because it was built by the community. And we appreciate your input. We appreciate working with Brian and getting the input from his staff, and also working with his staff to link to our real-time app, which will be available around that time as well. So people will be able to see not only the vehicle going down the road, but also if they have a smartphone or a website, they'll be able to see where the bus is at any given point in time. We'll be able to favorite a bus stop so that they can get a text message to know when the bus is going to be at that stop. And that's in addition to the public route schedules that will show the specific times that the bus will be along the route as well. At each bus stop, we will have a bus stop sign and also a bus stop schedule holder. Prior to putting up the bus stop signs, we are putting a coming soon bus stop sign up that has the date on there, the route number, which in Morganton, the route numbers will be 21 and 22, and out from Morganton to Valdez and back from Valdez and Rutherford College will be 23 and 24. We did designate the routes to have a number, a name, and also a color for those that would identify the route in that way. We'll have the bus correspond with the route that they're on and also with the number and the description. So for people who have never rode the bus before, we welcome them to give us a call. We do travel training. We will do it in groups. And also we will be offering to anyone who would like to ride the route before it starts an opportunity to see where it goes. And we'll be publishing those dates through the people that are on our board from the cities and towns. Cindy, what we would like to also leave you with is, towards the end, if you have any questions for us, we would be happy to answer those questions. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Gentlemen, you've heard this information that's in our package. Any questions for Camille or Brian?
Mr. Chairman, a couple. Camille, I went through this information twice and didn't see it, so if I overlooked it, I apologize in advance. Is there any cost to the riders on those bus routes?
Yes, thank you for mentioning that. There will be a cost to the riders after the first week. During the first week, we'd like to welcome everyone to ride for free. There will be agencies around town that will be providing free bus passes and also free bus tickets. But in addition to that, for those that are riding the bus that are over the age of 5, so that would be age 6 and older, it'd be $1.25 each way. And for those persons that are either designated as disabled because of a Medicare red, white, and blue card, and also over the age of 65, there will be a reduced fare of 60 cents.
Well, I think question number 2 was really going to be, your information states it's funded for 3 full years. Who funds it after year 3?
Yes. So the first 2 years are provided because we did secure those 2 large funders, the philanthropic funders of Kate B. Reynolds Foundation and Appalachian Regional Commission. Those are 2 largest funding sources. They are both written as 2-year grants, but because we secure both, we're able to right now have a huge down payment. In fact, virtually all of year 3 paid for. But the thinking is at some point there could be a transition where the local match can be just that, more local. Those foundations, we don't anticipate funding beyond the 2 years. Typically how these are, like Hickory Conover Newton service, FTA, or the Federal Transit Administration, formula funds provides about half of the operating costs, but the other half is covered more locally. And then you negotiate with those communities in terms of those years. But we're really excited. This is a pilot project. That would be a good problem to have, is that at the end of the trial period that we're deciding to continue it and try to find the money.
Yeah, that sounds like a winner there, but is there any anticipation or guess of how many riders you will have? And the second half of that question, will it be beneficial enough to maintain the bus route after a period of 3, 4, 5 years?
So all transit systems have minimal fare recovery, where the fares don't really begin to cover the costs of the service, but still provides such a public benefit that all various communities operate. I mean, even New York City has at least third or more subsidy at cost. But we're anticipating. I mean, we are hopeful, and we're going to monitor it in terms of it achieving the same riders per mile or riders per hour as the existing Hickory system, because I think that's a benchmark. We see a lot of comparable land use densities as the Hickory Conover Newton community in the Morganton Valdez corridor, and so we will be watching closely to see can at least be as high a ridership as that.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to suggest that if we complete with this, the minimum we do is to issue a big thank you card to each one of those 14 participants who are making this possible.
Right. All right. Thank you, Maynard. Other questions, comments?
Just one question. When I'm looking at the deviation map, what percentage of our population is going to fall within those boundaries?
Altogether, I believe it was approximately 22,000 people.
So
Along-
25%.
26%.
Okay.
Of Burke.
Thank you.
Other questions? Yes.
Camille, if somebody is assisting a senior, they're not going to be charged to ride the bus, are they?
That's correct. Thank you for mentioning that. All escorts will ride for free. That includes any escort for a child 5 and under. So if a parent is riding with a child, the parent would ride for free for the child.
Will these buses be handicap accessible?
Yes, every single bus that will be along the route will have they'll be equipped with a lift, which will allow for any person who is unable to walk up and down the stairs to take the lift. That could be a person in a wheelchair, walker, cane, and that could be a temporary or permanent basis.
Other questions? All right, thank you very much. Hearing no other questions, this will remain on the agenda.
Thank you.
Thank you. This brings us to item 4, scheduled public hearings. We have several public hearings to hear. First one comes from Community Development Zoning Map Amendment ZMA 2018-04. This will be presented by Pete Minner, our senior planner. Afternoon, Pete.
For let me be here today. And thanks, Scott, for running the microphone and the machine here. Not sure what the clerk has put together as far as slides. I'm filling in for Scott Carpenter today on this report, but we'll go through the slides and I'll explain them and of course entertain any questions that y'all might have. The first rezoning request, citizen initiated, and that map amendment request is 2018-04, and this rezoning request is to rezone a parcel of land into a split zone, actually. The entire parcel currently is zoned industrial, and if you notice in the picture there, there's a residence at the forefront of the property, and it is occupied. In the back of the property, it's pretty much vacant and wooded. There is a cleared area there as well, and so the applicant, Mr. Vincent, is wishing to rezone the back portion of his property because he owns a car lot in Valdez, and for whatever reason he has more cars on his lot than he can accommodate at that car lot, and so he has some that he would like to place on this parcel of land, and in order to do that it would have to be rezoned. As I mentioned, it's currently zoned industrial, but the industrial district doesn't permit the car storage type of use of the land. So he's wishing to rezone to general business in the back portion of his property. The front portion of the property, because it does have a residence on it, he's wishing to rezone to R2, the residential district. And if we get to our other maps, hopefully they're in there. That's the existing land use map. So this is based on current use of the land right now. And you'll see the purple there is industrial, the reds are general business, and the green is agricultural, the yellowish browns is residential. So those are the current uses of those properties in that vicinity. If you go to the next map, you can see the aerial view of those same properties, and this up on the top left is actually the recycling facility. It's located there along Highway 70. It spans a couple parcels there, and further to the right you'll have a couple more businesses as well. The next slide will show the current zoning map, and as you can see, that area there is got majority is industrial and general business along that stretch of Highway 70. You'll see the red outline parcel is Mr. Vincent's property. It's currently zoned industrial, as I mentioned, and so the residence that is on the property is currently a non-conforming use because the residential doesn't match the zoning. So in one respect, the rezoning request to the front portion be rezoned to the R2 district would bring that portion of the property into compliance with the zoning ordinance. As you notice, the other properties to the left and right are zoned R2 as well. The parcel, the large parcel adjoining it, that's industrial zoning, it is, two of those lots are together, actually, and that land is vacant right now and for sale. So the back portion of Mr. Vincent's property could be consistent with the zoning ordinance because of the close proximity of the other general business zoning to his property. So let's see, with the comprehensive land use plan, that's actually showing this area as secondary growth area. And that secondary growth area is just outside of the primary growth area. And what the plan says about that is that this area is expected to grow as the primary growth area expands out. So the density and types of uses would grow as services allow those to. So the secondary growth area expects commercial growth in this area. The planning board met to hear this case on July 26th of this year, and that meeting was open to the public. There were not any people from the public there to speak for or against this rezoning request. And after hearing all the staff report and the lack of public input, the board voted 6-0 to recommend approval of this rezoning request. That pretty much concludes my report, but I'd be glad to entertain any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Pete. It's difficult for a Baptist choir member to listen. I don't know about the rest of these guys, but I'm trying to keep from singing along, but.
I thought I saw your foot tapping there a time or two.
Okay, I'm just teasing. Any question for Pete on his presentation?
Mr. Chairman, would you like it stopped?
No, sir?
Mr. Chairman, a couple of questions, if I may. Pete, in your discussion, that location is about a block west of where the old skating rink used to be. It's within maybe a 4/10 to a half mile of where the school lets out every day. And I wonder if during your discussion, and by the way, in the future, there'll be 2 schools there that will be using access in and out of that school property. Was there any discussion at all of the traffic flow and the impact it might have on the school traffic in and out of there?
No, there was not. Actually, I was aware of the new school facility's proximity to this. And that is a good question, because although Mr. Vincent's proposal or plan is just to store some cars there that are overflow from his car lot and not have any public traffic to his location here, once that property is rezoned, it potentially could be any type of business that's allowed in the general business district. So there could be potential public to that property if Mr. Vincent chose a different business for that property, or he sold the property to someone else that chose to have a different allowed business in there. But to answer your question, no, that discussion didn't take place.
Well, it stated on his application that they were going to wash and complete cars, wash them and give them what we'd call a complete restoration as far as the insides and outsides, clean it up, make it smell like it's new again. But I know on that GB reclassification and zoning, there's about 42 categories that's allowed, and another 6 or 7 allowed on conditions. So,
Right.
for what he's got down there, I do not see it as a problem. But if he'd transfer and do something else, it could be a problem, especially if you looked at the peak of their business, what kind of business he's going to be doing.
Correct.
If a lot of traffic in and out of that location would be 7:30 to 8:39 in the morning and 2:30 to 4 in the afternoon, it could become a safety problem for that piece of highway. And the other question I had, and the final question, there was talk for a while about widening that 70. Was any of that discussed during the process?
No, sir, that was not brought up as well. And that may affect the front portion of his residence there more so than the back portion, but that did not come up as well.
All right, thank you. That's all, Mr. Chairman.
Other questions?
But Pete, on the ordinance itself, it references Morganton Township. That should probably be Akron Township.
Okay. Thank you for bringing that up.
Other questions, comments? All right, hearing none, this item will remain on the agenda without objection. This brings us to item number 2, also a zoning map amendment, ZMA 2018-05. This will be presented also by Pete.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Okay, following up with zoning map amendment 2018-05. This again was a citizen initiated request, and this is a request to rezone 3.2 acres that is currently zoned R1 to the the general business zoning district as well. And this applicant's name is Mr. Brett Setzer. This property lies along US 64 corridor, and what Mr. Setzer would like to do here is, well, establish a business which would be a tractor repair type business. According to Mr. Setzer, there's not another tractor repair business in all of Burke County and McDowell County as well, based on his indication. I don't know if that's accurate or not, maybe. Some of y'all might know that, but this parcel outlined in red is the subject parcel, and as you can see in this aerial photo, there's a business down the street from that, and behind that parcel of land is a subdivision. There's scattered homes along 64 in that area as well. Now, if we go to our zoning map, I think it's back up, Scott, if she included that. Land use map.
It's down,
Is it down? Okay. Okay. There you go. If you notice, the areas or parcels in red are already currently zoned general business. Some may not have businesses on them. They may be residences, and if that's the case, they're existing non-conforming. But at the time of rezoning, these parcels were zoned general business. There, as I mentioned, a convenience store that's located down the street from the subject parcel, and that may have been an indication of why other parcels were zoned general business, especially along that corridor there to allow for general business expansion. As I mentioned, behind that parcel, subject parcel, is a residential subdivision, and that's zoned R1 just as the subject parcel is. And so is conforming with the zoning ordinance, it adjoins general business zoning. So in that respect, the request is conforming. As far as the land use plan goes, this area is zoned rural agricultural. It lies a little bit further out than the primary growth area or the secondary growth area. So in this zoning area, we'll see a mixture of land uses, and they may even be adjoining each other. There could be business, residential, even possibly some industrial type land uses that are in close proximity or even adjoin each other out in the county. In this particular case, the general business zoning's in place adjacent to the subject property, and as I mentioned, that makes this consistent with the zoning ordinance. The planning board on that same night, July 26th, heard this case and asked for public comment. There was no one present to provide any comment for or against, and the planning board voted 6-0 to recommend approval of this rezoning request. I think that's, I don't know if you have photos of the attached to your packet, but if you do, you can see the area and different uses along the 64 in that area.
Yes, we do have.
Okay. That concludes my report, and I'll entertain any questions.
Okay, thank you, Pete. Any questions for Pete on this matter?
Pete, a couple of questions that I would like to ask, but did he happen to tell you what brand of tractor that was?
That he'll be working on?
Yeah. He said he's going to sell new and work on new and used tractors, and I just wondered which brand this.
You know,
Just so I can share the information for no other reason.
Sure. I don't believe he mentioned the new type of tractors that he would sell, but he did mention, because I asked him what type of tractors he would be able to work on, and he said he'd be able to work on all different brands of tractors.
Well, we lost a big dealership to the west of us. It wasn't in our county, but it was close enough that a lot of people in our county did a whole lot of business with them.
Yeah.
Of course, we lost one in Caldwell County a couple of years ago, and he's the one that moved to Catawba and bought my dealership out when I sold it. And we lost a service. He didn't sell new ones, but he worked and sold parts to the south on Highway 18. I hope he does well. It's a very, we do not have a tractor dealership in Burke County. So to me, that's a welcome business. We do have one other that I am aware of that has a shop in the back of his house and works on tractors, but that'll be the only new dealership, and the one that works on them doesn't have many parts. So, and people having to drive a long way to get products and service for their tractors and equipment. So, to me, that's a welcome entity to be in Burke County.
I thought if anybody could collaborate his testimony, it would be you. And I guess it is accurate that there's not another one selling new tractors in in Burke County. So if that's the case, I agree it would be a welcome business to Burke County. As far as the compatibility with the surrounding land, if the rezoning was approved, the applicant would have to submit a site development plan to the county for review and approval. And part of the site review process and requirements involve that the business is screened or has a buffer from residential uses. The property is almost all wooded at this time. He is planning to do a little bit more clearing there, but regardless of how much clearing he does do, he would have to provide a buffer or screening between the business and any residential uses there.
Other questions, comments? All right, thank you, Pete. Hearing none, this item will remain on the agenda without objection. Item number 3 comes from the Tax Department, presentation of 2019 schedule of value, present use schedule of value, and public hearing. This will be presented by Danny Eisenhower, Tax Administrator. Afternoon, Danny.
Good afternoon, Chairman and Commissioners. Good afternoon, Chairman and Commissioners. We'd like to start off our presentation here with a presentation from a couple of my staff members, Bill Smith and Kim Baker, to give you a little bit of what a reappraisal is all about. So I'll let them go ahead.
Good afternoon. We're so happy that you're allowing us to be here this afternoon. This, of course, is Bill Smith, and I'm Kimberly Baker, and we are here representing the Burke County Tax Assessor's Office. And we are going to talk about the upcoming 2019 Burke County reevaluation. Some people like to call it the reappraisal. To begin with, we want you to know we take pride in our work, and we believe in the work that we do for the citizens of Burke County. We also understand that paying taxes, it's not fun for anyone. We too have to pay those taxes. However, taxes are important to our community as they provide the necessary funding for our police, for our fire, for our EMS departments. They support the public schools where our children and our grandchildren are educated to become the next generation that will carry forth the work in this beautiful county. And these are just a few of the services that the property tax dollars support.
We take our work very seriously, and we're committed to fair, uniform, and equitable treatment of every property owner in Burke County. The work in our department is performed by real property appraisers who are certified by the North Carolina Department of Revenue. We currently have over 70 years of combined experience. As we enter into the 2019 Burke County revaluation, there are many questions the taxpayers have. There are many misconceptions that go along with these questions, and we hope to clarify and put people's mind at ease as we go forward. Education is important, and we hope to provide today with hopefully we answer some of those questions with our presentation.
The first question most people tend to ask is, what is a revaluation and why do we do it? Well, the answer is a little difficult sometimes to understand. Revaluation is the reappraisal of all property, real property, by the assessor's office. It's required by state law to do this every 8 years. However, some counties may elect to do that more frequently. And during a revaluation, a new appraised value is assigned to your property. The new value reflects the market conditions as they exist on January 1st of that reevaluation year. For us, that'll be January 1, 2019. So all sales before January 1, 2019 will be used to revalue your property.
Question, why do we do it? Answer, the North Carolina General Statute 105, 286, and 287 require it. And many things can change the value of your property between revaluation years. For example, the physical condition, the use of the property, and the current market conditions. Some of these changes can cause dramatic increases or decreases in your value. Appraising the property at its current market value establishes each taxpayer fair share value and helps to assure that taxpayers are taxed fairly and equitably.
To determine property values, we use the current market values that are established by the people who buy and sell property. You, me, the citizens of Burke County. The current market values reflect the amount of money that people are willing and able to buy and sell real estate. Okay, so now that we know the who, what, and why, the next question is, how do we determine new property values? Every effort is made to consider all the factors involved in determining property values. Appraisers conduct field inspections. Sales data is developed and analyzed, and the market trends are continuously monitored.
Information is gathered by contacting the property owners, local realtors, building contractors, suppliers, and lending institutions. Appraisers consider such things as replacement costs and comparable sales in your area.
And any construction improvements you make also affect the value of your property. Like if you finish your basement, or you add another bathroom, or you add a porch, or extend your existing deck. All of these things add value to your property. Current construction cost and depreciation are calculated for each improvement.
There are three ways to calculate value: the cost approach, the sales approach, and the income approach. The cost approach determines the value based on current construction cost, and it is adjusted for the age and condition of the improvement. The sales approach values comparing your property to similar properties that have recently sold. And the income approach uses this method determines the value of the property based on the amount of income it produces. An example of this is an apartment complex.
But what if I don't agree with the new value?
If you believe your new appraisal is too high because it substantially exceeds the value your property would sell for, or is not in line with similar properties in your area, you may file an appeal. An appeal must be completed, and that'll be on the back of your revaluation notice that you'll receive in early 2019, in the spring of 19.
As you begin this appeal process, there are a couple of things that you will want to remember. The first thing is to attach some documentation to support the reason why you think your value is too high or too low. Things such as photographs of the interior of your home or even exterior of your home, recent appraisals that you have had done. Writing too high or too low on your appeal is not enough information to consider a value change. Another thing to consider is to return the appeal form to the assessor's office within the time frame allowed. Unfortunately, appeals that are not filed in a timely manner may not be considered, and you may have to be pushed to another appeal time.
Once the assessor receives your appeal, your value will be reanalyzed and adjustments may be made based on a field review conducted by one of our appraisers. Based on the new findings of the appraiser, your assessment may be lowered, it may be increased, or it may remain the same. This process takes time, and we'll send new values from these appeals in late spring of 2019.
If you're not satisfied with that value, you may appeal it to the local Board of Equalization and Review. We call that the Board of E&R. Now, if you still don't like the value that you receive from the Board of E&R, you may also go to the North Carolina Property Tax Commission. And again, if you don't like that decision, then you may go to the North Carolina Court of Appeals.
Most citizens understand why we have taxes, and most citizens don't have a problem with the value of their property. But we do have some folks that qualify for a reduction in the amount of taxes they pay, which brings us to our next question. Are there any programs for tax relief? The answer is yes. There are two programs for tax exclusion. The homestead exclusion for the elderly or disabled, and the disabled veterans exclusion.
To qualify for the homestead exclusion, you must be 65 years or older and totally and permanently disabled. You must be a permanent resident of North Carolina, and the home must be your primary resident. And the combined gross income of the homeowner and the spouse cannot exceed an amount set forth by the state. That is set each year. For 2019, that amount is $30,200. This requires a one-time application. Qualified applicants receive an exclusion of $25,000 in value, or 50% of the home and home site value, whichever is greater.
To qualify for the disabled veterans exclusion, a veteran must be a disabled veteran who was honorably discharged. If the veteran has passed away, the surviving widow or widower will qualify for this exclusion. And the veteran must have a total and permanent service-related disability. And for this exclusion, there is no age or income limitation. And up to the first $45,000 of tax value is excluded.
Applicants for either of these exclusions must be received between January 1 and June 1 of 2019. Now, this is a lot of information for you to take in and absorb and fully understand. And we understand that it'll be the same for the public. Therefore, we have compiled a short video that we would like to place on the website so that anyone can go and view it. And we'd like to show that to you at this time.
Keeping the citizens of Burke County informed about its government creates an open line of communication and a positive atmosphere. This short video is to educate our citizens about the upcoming tax revaluation. The state of North Carolina requires by law that real property be reappraised or assessed every 8 years as mandated by the North Carolina General Statute. What exactly does that mean? Reappraise or assessed? Assessed means to calculate or estimate value. So what this means is local tax officials are updating the value of all real property by determining the market value of all real property. Where does the market value come from? The value of your home is based on sales of similar properties that have sold prior to January 1, 2019. In comparing the properties, an appraiser looks at the sales price, along with the terms and conditions of each sale. In Burke County, after a sale is recorded and updated in the tax system, an appraiser will visit the property to do an external review. Appraisers are certified as real property appraisers by the North Carolina Department of Revenue. We currently have over 70 years of combined experience. Some people get nervous when they hear the word tax appraiser. They seem to think the appraiser is there to simply raise their taxes or collect delinquent taxes, but that is simply not true. Appraisers are not tax collectors. Appraisers are there to measure and correctly list what is on the property, the condition of the property, and any updates that may have been made to the property. Simply put, an appraiser is interested in determining fair market value for your property. All properties are different, but may have some of the same qualities. Is it fair to place the same value on all properties just because they have some of the same qualities? Let's look at the following example. Imagine that you're in a restaurant with two friends. One friend orders a hot dog. One orders a plate of caviar. And you order a steak. They are all different, but they are all the same as they are all food. They are all hot, and they are all delicious. The server brings the bill of $100, but he doesn't know how much each of you should pay. If everyone paid the same amount, the friend who ordered the caviar might be happy. But what about the friend who ordered the hot dog? Would that friend be happy? That is where appraisers come in. We are the piece of the puzzle that will make it fit properly. The food is your property, and just like the meals, some people's property is worth more than others. And it is the appraiser's job to determine fair market value for all properties. So just as in the same way the value of these menu items would need to be determined, an appraiser places value on properties to ensure fairness and equity. That is the reason your home won't just be compared to the place next door. Studying things like square footage, age, and location, along with the physical condition of your home, helps assessors determine how comparable other property is to yours. Even seemingly small details, like an extra bathroom or finished basement, can result in significant differences in value in two otherwise identical homes. Using the overall county value and the proposed county budgets, county commissioners determine the tax rate needed to provide services. The tax rate times your tax value equals the amount of taxes you pay. By doing it this way, all taxpayers are treated fairly and equitably. Burke County is committed to being fair and equitable in the assessments of real property throughout the county.
Our valuation notices for properties will be mailed out in spring of 2019. The informal appeals will take 30 days, so once you get your notice, you'll have 30 days to send that back in. And once that happens, we'll look at it and send the notices back out, answering those appeals. And the Board of Equalization will convene in April, and the formal appeals for the Board of E&R will be taken until the board adjourns in May of 2019. The 2019 tax bills will be mailed in July of 2019. If there are any questions, we'll see what we can do about answering those at this time.
All right, thank you, Bill. Kim, that's a great video, great presentation. Any questions, gentlemen, for Bill and Kim at this point?
Mr. Chairman, I have several. First of all, Kimberly, I apologize. I do have hearing aids, and when something gets louder, it shuts you out. So part of the presentation I did not hear, but one thing in particular, you closed a paragraph with 2019 is a good time to reevaluate. What was said to substantiate that statement?
I don't think that I said that 2019 was a good year to evaluate. Is that what you said? Did I misunderstand you?
Do what?
You said that I said 2019 was a good year to evaluate?
Would be a good year to evaluate.
I don't believe I said that 2019 was a good year to evaluate, but we are going to do the reval in 2019. Our last reval was in 2013, so that will be 6 years between the two revaluations. The market trends are up right now, which will make it a good time to do a revaluation.
Well, this board had already voted to do reevaluation in 8 years, which would be 2021. What is the motive, Danny? I guess this is your question.
Danny.
What is the motive to move this up?
Mr. Taylor, we did not move the reevaluation up. North Carolina General Statute says that we have to do it at least every 8 years. And I don't have it right here, it's over at my desk, but Burke County decided on a 4-year reevaluation cycle, actually the first time back in 1987, to do it every 4 years. A little over 2 years ago, about 2.5 years ago, I went to the commissioners and actually...
Speak a little closer to the mic, please.
A couple years ago,
Thank you.
I actually went to the commissioners and I requested that the commissioners postpone the reevaluation for 2 years. So this will be a 6-year cycle. We can go up to 8 years. At that point in time, whenever I requested that, I said we can either postpone it. I recommend we postpone it 2 years, but we can go as much as 4 years out. So at that point in time, the commissioners decided that, hey, we'll do it in 2 years. Hopefully the market will be in a better shape and all. So now Kim was not saying that we decided that's a good time. We don't decide that. You gentlemen decide when we do a reevaluation. And that was, like I said, decided 2.5, almost 3 years ago when the next one would be.
So the motive to do it now is?
We were instructed to do it by the commissioners
When?
about 3 years ago
To do it?
in 2019.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying. When I went to the commissioners and I asked them to postpone it from 2017.
At what point would you, at what percentage point increase in valuation would it be justifiable and have a payback to do an expensive reevaluation?
Whenever I went to the commissioners about 3 years ago, at that point in time, I recommended that we not do a reevaluation simply because we were going to be plus or minus 2% was my crystal ball, what my crystal ball was telling me at that point in time. And once we set this in motion, then it doesn't really matter whether we go up 10%, we go down 10%. I understand what your question is, when does it make sense financially to do it? But the way the general statute's written, we can't really go on that. Now, the Department of Revenue does have some parameters, and when you start getting below that 90% mark, then they're going to schedule you to have they're going to say, hey, you're going to have one within 2 years. And that's some of the new rules that they've come out with. Because they want to keep, regardless of whether it's financially feasible or not, they want to keep us as close to market value as possible.
Well, you know where I live, Dead End Road, 46 houses. There's been 4 houses for sale down there, I don't know how many years. 2 of them finally sold. One tax value was over 100. It sold for less than 60, which is 40% off. The other one sold for about 20% off the value. The third one, the lady was dying of cancer. She tried to sell it at about 35% below your tax value. Never could sold it. 2 days before she passed away, she donated it to a couple of neighbors. Never did sell it. The other one is still empty and probably will never be sold and probably will never be lived in again because it's an older house. So you see why I ask the questions of why are we doing an evaluation now? The NCGS 105-286 rule says that the property, or to correct a data error, excuse me, let me back up. This is in accordance with NCGS 105-287. Tax value can only change between reappraisals when improvements have been added or deleted from property. Increases or decreases in tax value cannot be made for economic reasons. And I get the drift real bad that this reappraisal and reevaluation is being made for economic reasons. Why are we doing it?
Because it was scheduled 3 years ago to do it. The commissioners tell us when to do it. And if we looked at, like I said, whenever I went to them before, and I said we'll be plus or minus 2%, I didn't feel that it was economically feasible at that point in time. That's the only reason I requested the commissioners to postpone it. If you look at current market conditions just on our, what we call the sales ratio, when we compare sales to tax value, right now we're running between 8 and 10% low on tax value. In other words, houses are selling for 8 to 10% more. Now, if you go out and you look at all the sales, you're going to see a lot of sales out there that are selling for 40 and 50% more. I do not believe that this schedule of values or this reevaluation will be up in that percentage county overall, but I do believe it'll be around 7 to 9%.
And the other comment I wanted to make, because the comment was made by one of the speakers, I don't remember which one, but she talked about when they added a swimming pool or a porch or added a garage, whatever, that would bring in more money. But in Burke County, you don't add a porch, or you don't add a carport, or you don't add a swimming pool without a permit, and it's taxed the next year. It doesn't get to wait till 4 years reevaluation.
Right.
And I think that's true in every county now, isn't it?
That's true, but what Kim's point in those slides were, if you've got two, let's call it a ranch style house. You got two ranch style houses, 1,400 square foot, built by the same builder side by side. They should be valued the same. But if one of those has a full basement or a partial basement and maybe an extra bathroom was her example, then that one's going to be valued higher. It's worth more because it's got more square footage, it's got more amenities. That's where she was going with that slide.
Okay, the other comment, and I'll shut up. The very expensive part of East Burke County is usually considered the Piney Mountain housing development. And if, I can't recall, but I don't believe there's been but one house built there in 5 years. So, and we got 300 empty houses. Is that right? 3,000. 3,000 empty houses, which means the value of it, if you don't have a house rented, there's lots of reasons it's not rented, but at any factor, if you're not making income off of a house you own, you sure don't want to pay more taxes. Is that a correct statement?
Well, I think nobody wants to pay more taxes at any point in time.
So my point is, I don't see the need to up this 2 years. I don't know why we don't leave it at 21st. That's all, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Okay, Danny, carry on. I think you had some more information.
Thank you. Okay, what I want. Yes, sir. Thank you. Okay, as far as the reevaluation, there's a couple things that have to happen. One, we have to present the schedule of values to the Board of Commissioners, and we break that into two different versions. We break it into the regular schedule of values and the present use. Present use is the farm part. So as far as the schedule of values, I'd like to begin with acknowledging our Board of Commissioners and our management. Say thanks to our appraisal staff, our Board of Equalization and Review, our reappraisal group that we use, different counties that are having a current reappraisal, Henderson, Randolph, and Rutherford, along with the Department of Revenue and others. What I thought I would do in this to try to keep it as brief as possible and cover it is just to go over some of the things that are in the schedule values. There's a timeline for the schedule values approval process. Today is the day that we present it, September the 4th. Then the clerk to the board will advertise that the schedule values have been presented to the board, and also that there will be a public hearing. We will hope we will not go through the process of Kim and them when we do the September the 18th meeting. It'll just be we'll briefly go over it, and then we'll hold a public hearing at that point in time. Once the public hearing has been held, then October the 2nd will be the date that it will go to the Board of to the Board of Commissioners to adopt the schedule of values. We will advertise for those that those schedules have been adopted and are available for public inspection in October, and then taxpayers have until November the 3rd to appeal the schedule. By appealing the schedule, they would have to come and say, page 42 is wrong, it's got the wrong number in it. They would have to have some reason to appeal that to the Property Tax Commission at the state level. Just some quick facts about Burke County. 54%, or approximately 54% of the county's operating budget comes from property tax. The tax base is comprised of personal property, which would be like boats, motors, manufactured homes, public service companies like Duke Energy, registered motor vehicles, that's all your tagged vehicles that we get taxes from, and real property. Real property could be land, could be a land and house. Real property accounts for about 77% of the tax base. In Burke County, we have around 56,300 parcels make up the county. 62% of these have improvements and 38% are vacant. About 30% of these are exempt properties. So it's a big portion of Burke County, the exemptions are. Going into the schedule a little bit, page 12, purpose of the reappraisal is to measure the change in the market of real property and adjust tax value to reflect this change. This way, all classes of property are treated fairly and equitably. And you heard that over and over and over in Kim and Bill's speech. General statute requires that all counties conduct a reappraisal at least every 8 years. New rules go into effect for counties conducting reappraisals after this 2018. The Department of Revenue is going to be a little more in control of when we do them. And they're actually working toward a 4-year schedule for everyone. Burke County's last project was 2013. Page 13 outlines our schedule of events for 2019, and Bill and Kim went over some of these. The effective date is January 1st. The notice of assessed values that we'll be mailing out to everyone is going to be around March the 1st. Property owners will have between January and April to appeal their assessed value, and when we send the valuation notice, there will be a tear-off on the bottom of that notice if they do wish to appeal. But like I said earlier, you can't just say it's too high. You've got to give us some reasons why to appeal. April, the Board of Equalization Review will convene to hear the appeals. May, they will adjourn for the purpose of taking new ones. What happens with the Board of Equalization each year is we adjourn, but they still have work to do, so they still have to complete that work. They cannot take on new work for that year. Of course, by June 30th, then the tax rate is established by the Board of Commissioners. In July, we will mail the bills. The appeal period begins when the value notices are sent. We have different levels, like was discussed earlier. We have the informal level, which says the assessor can make changes in the values, make changes, our staff will make changes. The Board of Equalization Review, if they don't like the assessor's value, will then hear the appeals, and then the Property Tax Commission, Court of Appeals, and Supreme Court. The way that these typically work, we will have in the ballpark of 6 to 8% of appeals of the 56,000 parcels. at the informal level. Then past that, we will have about 10% of that to the Board of V&R and about 10% of the Board of V&Rs to the state level. And what I've seen the last few years is those numbers are actually greater than what we had last reappraisal. 2001, we had 14,000 appeals, and 2013, we had just over 2,000. So, this process is conducted in accordance with all North Carolina general statutes, especially 105-283, the Uniform Appraisal Standards. It's also in compliance with the Uniform Standards of Professional Appraisal, which we call USPAT Standard 6. Pages 24 through 35 are going to explain the different approaches to value, the sales, the cost, the income. Land valuation begins on page 36. Manufactured home valuation, page 38. And page 39 discusses the mass appraisal process. Mass appraisal process allows large numbers of properties to be appraised within a short period of time. What we do is a mass appraisal process. It's not a one-on-one like a fee appraiser would do. The county is divided into market areas. This way we're not comparing where Commissioner Taylor lives with the lake or with a really nice subdivision. We're looking at that as more of a rural area. We've got approximately 1,000 different market areas within the county. Quality grades, we talk about quality grades on page 48. Not all structures are equal. You know, you've got a nice ranch house, which would be your base house, and then you compare it to something that's maybe up the lake that's maybe what we call a grade A or a high value house. And then you've got houses that go the other direction because they're poor workmanship, poor quality of construction. We also have condition factors that are discussed on page 49. These say that the house is in typical condition, which we call average, or maybe it's in poor condition because it needs a roof, the siding's bad, or maybe it's in excellent condition because it's been very well maintained. These quality and condition factors are also used on manufacturing homes, on commercial buildings also. There are examples and guidelines in determining grades on pages 51 through 65. 68 discusses low-income housing and its valuation process. And pages 75 through 83 that they just went through show the have the basic descriptions of commercial properties. The heart of the schedule begins, I guess, with the land values, pages 84 through 86, which are tables that show different values that we can use. These values can also be adjusted for size, which are on pages 87 through 89. We go into residential properties on page 90 with residential base rates, then the grades and adjustments 91 through 97, the size adjustments and story heights 98 through 116, and then we go through the various other adjustments that are available. Commercial properties follow the same type of schedules. We have commercial base rates, then we have grade, economic, and depreciation life tables, size adjustment, story height, and other adjustments. The last group are the miscellaneous improvements, and I would call those more along the line of your sheds, your pools, your outbuildings, that type of stuff. And we also have base rates and grade adjustments on there. Page 179, Appendix 1, is what we call the DOR, or Department of Revenue Deed Edit Sheet. This is used as part of the process for qualifying and disqualifying sales. Not every sale is a good sale. We have to qualify those. If you have an example of a bad sale is a foreclosure or a sale between two people that are related, it might be a good price that Dad sold son the house for, and then again, it might be a really good price that he gave him a deal on it. So there's a list of items there that we have for rejection. Unless it's what we call an arm's length transaction, it has to hit one of those rejection notices. That goes into our sales base, and this is used for determining our sales ratio. And just to give you an example of a sales ratio, if a property sells for $100,000, tax office value is $98,500, then we would be at 98.5% on our sales ratio. Conversely, if we've got it on for excuse me, 100,000, or it sells for 100,000, we've got it on for 110, then we will be 10% over. Our goal in that is to get the market value at 100%. That's the reason that we have, not only do we use the sales, we look at income, we use the cost approach, use all three approaches to value if possible, and try to get those things down as tight as we can to market value. That's our schedule of values, and I'll entertain any questions. That's pretty quick. There's a ton of information in here before we go into the present use schedule.
Thank you, Danny. Any questions for Danny up to this point? He's got a couple more areas to cover. Any questions on the schedule of values? Okay, hearing none, carry on, Danny.
Okay. We'll now look at the second portion of this that's called schedule of values for the present use program. This is your forestry, horticulture, agriculture program, and it now also includes a wildlife program. Wildlife did not come along until 2010. The other three programs were initiated by general legislature in 1974. The purpose for that was to keep the family farm in the hands of the farming family. Supervision for this, we call it PUV, Present Use Value Program, is provided by a nine-member board, the Use Advisory Board, under the supervision of North Carolina State University Agriculture Extension Service. The first pages 8 through 22 are relevant general statutes, something that really puts you to sleep, that apply to these programs. Page 23 describes the application process, ownership, size, gross income, sound management, and compliance reviews. This program lowers the amount of taxes paid on about 1,478 parcels in Burke County. It does it by lowering the taxable value on the land in the program. And an example of this is 100 acres that's in the forestry program, might have a market, and I'm just using easy numbers here, might have a market value of $1,000 an acre. From the table, we looked at the table in Appendix 1 of this section, this book, schedule, and property that's in the forestry program, it's in the what we call MRLA, Major Land Resource Area, Major Resource Land Area, and call it Piedmont Class 1, which Class 1 is the soil type. The value on that is $360 an acre. So the taxpayer would pay taxes on that plot of property at $360 an acre. And there will be a difference of $640 an acre. That comes off what we call deferred value. The deferred value, taxpayer does not have to pay taxes on that unless he comes out of the program. And at that point in time, he's got to pay current and 3 years back. If he's had it for 10 years, anything over that 4-year period just rolls off in deferred. Page 40, Appendix 1 are the actual use value rates set by this schedule of values, and these rates are determined by the major land resource area, the program, and the soils classification. Pages 41 through 43, Appendix 2 is a breakdown of soils type, and that's determined by the Use Advisory Board, what class of soil, for what purpose, and what value it is. And then the end of it, the last 3 pages are soils maps representing a different soil class for each type of property. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Danny. Any questions on the
Mr. Chairman, if I may please. Danny, you put an illustration up on the wall there. Ag land that produces $1,370, I believe it was under horticulture. Tax rate for that. And then you use $650 income per acre and the tax rate for that. And we don't change the tax rate every year. And if he has a dry, no rain year and he produces nothing on that acreage, he still pays for the $1,370 for that next year, correct?
No, once you're in the use value program, it requires sound management, and it requires, if you're in the ag, it requires a $1,000 income per year. Sure, you could have a dry year and you might not meet that $1,000, but over the course of a 3-year period, you should have exceeded that $1,000 per year.
Well, no. In some years and some periods of time, example, when cows were down for about 8 years, nobody made any money. They may have had income off of it, but they did not make any money. And even in some of the things today, we rabbit hunt on Christmas tree properties up in the mountains. And they may sell those Christmas trees at a price. But about as many years as they make money, they lose money, even though they sold products for that year. So my question is that you're taxing, according to your own chart, you're taxing X number of dollars on $1,370 income, but if a guy makes only $650, it's a lower tax value. My question is, the next year when those numbers might be even reversed, I don't know if they will, but they'll either go up or down, and because we don't reevaluate for 4 years, 6 years, 8 years, what happens to that guy's tax rate?
Okay, Mr. Taylor, what you're misunderstanding here is that is not the amount of income that is required. The amount of income is $1,000 per year. It's not profit, it's income, $1,000 per year.
I got that.
That rate that is up there is the rate that he's paying on taxes. In other words, if you've got a piece of property out here and we've got a market value of $1,000, just making an easy number, chances are it's going to be $4,500 for good farmland or whatever. But instead of paying based on that $4,500, and I don't have the rates I can turn to them, but that's where my example on the forestry at $360 per acre.
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't you rather pay taxes on $360 per acre for that 100 acres than you would on $4,000 an acre? That's where this program is beneficial.
Well, you're asking me, my question to you, the difference in the production of the land, to me, is I understand the minimum sale of $1,000 an acre. The state says $10,000 per year farm income to earn your farm card, but And it doesn't have to be profit, it has to be sale. You can't mandate profit, nobody can tell you what profit's going to be.
This program does not mandate profit. This program mandates income,
Yeah,
and the income is $1,000. So if you've got a 10-acre farm or you've got a 100-acre farm, the income is $1,000. It doesn't change based on size.
I got you. I'm trying to align with your earlier example from Kimberly. If you sell a hot dog, it's $1. If you sell a steak, it's $14. What was the other? Vegetable plate,
I'm not sure that I'm following your question.
I'll call you.
Okay, please do.
Yeah.
Any other questions on the ag present use values? Okay, Danny, I believe you got something else.
That is, Mr. Chairman, that's all I have until consent.
All right. Thank you, Danny. This seems like a real easy thing to do, so I know y'all will knock it out right quick. This will bring us to our consent agenda. First item on the consent agenda this afternoon is Burke Recovery National Recovery Month, and that will be presented by Kim James. Kim, thank you for being here.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. I'm coming to you on behalf of the Burke Substance Abuse Network, which is a collaborative of multiple agencies and organizations across the county. Even the Board of Commissioners is represented on that agency. We are coming about National Recovery Month, which is coordinated by the Substance Abuse Mental Health Services Administration of the federal government. They have adopted September as National Recovery Month. So in that light, Burke County is joining thousands across the nation to celebrate recovery, commemorate recovery, and basically make awareness for recovery in general. So we are hosting a rally on September 15th. At the historic Morganton Courthouse Square. What we are asking of the Board of Commissioners is to adopt a proclamation. And I'm hoping everyone has a copy of that proclamation, and I can read that if you would prefer. But I do want to point out two things, that since January 2016, Burke County Sheriff's officers have responded to 458 overdoses in Burke County alone, and that number has gone up since we received this data. And Burke County is also ranked in the top 5% of vulnerability for the rapid dissemination of HIV or HCV infections among persons who inject drugs, and that's a national number. Would you like me to read that proclamation?
Okay, thank you, Kim. I believe everybody's got that proclamation in front of you. Any questions? We're glad to, support this proclamation. We certainly understand the value of the work that you guys do. We appreciate all that you do, and we want to support this effort. Any questions to Kim on this?
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to second her request that, since I'm on mental health and all that other thing, that if it's at all possible for all of our commissioners to be there, I'd invite you to come on behalf of mental health and recovery.
All right. Thank you, Kim. Without objection, this item will remain on the consent agenda. This brings us to item number 2, Burke County Public Schools, School Construction Change Order number 10 and 11. This will be presented by Doug Setzer this afternoon. Hey, Doug.
Chairman. Thank you for your time, Commissioners, this afternoon. And I'd like to report we had a good start up for schools this year. We're in our second week. The first week went extremely well, even with the new school opening in Mountain View, and that's what we're here to talk about this afternoon. Got 2 change orders that were in your packet there. The first one is change order number 10. We looked at this sports field, athletic field at the school, and we wanted it for our students to have the best possible field they could have. Most of these students have had to either go to Table Rock or to Bethel Park, somewhere else to play sports. We have talked, Dr. Aker's been in touch with the county rec department, and they're excited about this field probably started being used in the end of September for fall soccer. So to sod that field, 80,000 square feet of sod, you can see the price there for $53,087. It is looking good. like I say, the school, the opening went well. If you haven't been through that school, I urge you to go by and take a tour of that school. Burke County can be extremely proud of that school. I don't think there's one any nicer in North Carolina, so we're excited about having it open. Any questions on change order number 10?
Any questions for Doug on the sod change?
Mr. Chairman, I did have one question. Excuse me. I just had a question about the putting sod versus sowing. Since it's getting late in the fall, ideal time to to put out grass and so forth. Would it not save you a whole lot of money to put out the seed?
It would had, we wanted our students there at that school and the county students too, or kids in that county have a place to play now this fall. And sod make, like I say, the rec league, their soccer starting at the end of September. If we'd sowed that grass, it definitely probably would not have been ready for play until next year this time. And we want to be able to start playing now.
I see your point, but is there any idea of the difference in the savings, just for reference?
I do not have. I know we got, in this, we got $6,000 deducted for the seed that we would have used that to sow with.
I understand. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. All right, go on to number 11.
Okay, change order 11, when we ended up with that, this change order is to put automatic gates on the entrance and the exit in front of the school, and also to finish fencing the entire perimeter of that school site for safety. That is our main objective there, to try and make that a safe campus for our students to go to school at each day. You can see that the cost of that change order was $63,878.
Questions for Doug? Looks like you had a lot of boring on that, Doug. Was that, couldn't do it any other way?
That was, that included, getting around the field there between that and down around the greenway that's coming through that. And like I say, it ends up our entire campus will be fenced in at this time.
Questions, comments? All right, hearing none, thank you, Doug. This item will remain on the consent agenda without objection.
Good. Thank you for your help.
Thank you. Item number 3, Board of Commissioners resolution opposing House Bill 320. This will be presented by Vice Chairman Carter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. North Carolina General Assembly in session 2017 ratified House Bill 320, which is known as an act to expand the types of land that can qualify for the present use values. What it typically says, present use values in conservation areas for wildlife, the state wanted to up that from 100 acres to 800 acres. Obviously, Burke County is comprised of 312,000 acres, of which only 220,000 is taxable due to the high level of federal ownership of the land. Graham County, currently less than 25% of that county is taxable land. What we're very fortunate here in Burke County is we have the Foothills Conservancy, who uses a little common sense to take land that needs to be conserved, and us being part of that, I think we've done an extremely good job to take care of the land that needs to be conserved. The results in Burke County only having 70.6% taxable acreage, obviously, is that we take in less tax money. The North Carolina General Assembly passes legislation with little or no feedback from the counties or the North Carolina County Commissioners Association. This came in front of the Tax and Finance Steering Committee, which I'm the chairman of, and it has now been proposed to oppose House Bill 320, and I would ask that we also oppose House Bill 320 on this resolution.
Okay, thank you, Johnny. Gentlemen, you've heard this information. We heard some of this discussion at our annual meeting, the impact that this bill has had on not just our county, but a significant impact on a number of other counties across the state. Any questions on this matter?
Mr. Chairman, I have a big question mark on this item, and quite honestly, waiting on information from Raleigh. They're supposed to send me the pros and cons. My question centers around just this thought of being fair. you know, we let these big companies, and I'm not going to mention them by name, but, you know, we do them every month, almost every meeting. And we give mega $1 million companies great big discounts, tax discounts to locate in Burke County. And yet we want to take away an avenue to residents who's lived here long ago. You know, I think the example y'all used was 800 acres. I don't own 800 acres. But if that is farm use and qualifies for a lower tax rate, I don't see why we want to punish those individuals that would otherwise honestly and equitably earn a discount on the taxes. So, you know, the judge is still out for me on whether I think we ought to do this. So I'm just giving you my point of view.
All right. Other comments, questions on this matter? Hearing none, this item will remain on the consent agenda without objection. Item number 5, Clerk, appointments, Park and Recreation Commission. This will be presented by Lance Riddle. Lance?
Actually, JCPC first.
Turn your microphone on there, Lance, please.
So this is going to be for the JCPC first.
What do you skip forward?
That's what he's addressing.
So thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. This item is for the Juvenile Crime Prevention Council. Seat number 16, member of the business community on the JCPC, has been vacant for quite a while. However, an application was received from Doug Hartjes, president of COR Consulting, Inc., to fill this vacancy. The term is for the remainder of a 2-year term ending June 30th, 2019.
Thank you, Lance. Any questions on this item for Lance? Hearing none, this will remain on the consent agenda without objection. Item number 5, Clerk, appointments, Parks and Recreation. Lance?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Concerning the Parks and Recreation Commission, seat number 1, Forest Hill, is empty due to a resignation. Seats 3, 5, and 10, representing the Drexel, George Hildebrand, and Oak Hill districts, are also vacant. An application from Brad Clark is expected for seat number 1. Tim Roney has applied for seat number 3. Rebecca Ramsey has applied for seat number 5. And Mo Beam has applied for seat number 10 to the board. And so this would be, their terms would be ending March 31st, 2021, March 31st, 2019, March 31st, 2021, and March 2019, respectively, and to remove Stephen Himes' name from the official roster and thank him for his service to the county.
All right, thank you, Lance. Any questions on this item? Hearing none, this item will remain on the consent agenda without objection. Item number 6, Clerk appointments to Western Piedmont Council of Governments Regional Aging Advisory Committee. This will also be presented by Lance.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. The terms of appointment for Karen Robinson and Jerry Probst on the Western Piedmont Council of Government Regional Aging Advisory Committee ended on June 30th. Tina Miller, Western Piedmont Council of Government Area Aging Director, requests the reappointment of both members for another 2-year term ending June 30th, 2020.
All right, thank you, Lance. Any question on this item? Hearing none, without objection, this item will remain on the consent agenda. Item number 7, Community Development, adoption of the Fontaflora State Trail Master Plan. This will be presented by Shane Prisby, our Community Development. Afternoon, Shane.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. The Community Development Department has contracted with Destination by Design to do an update of the Over Mountain Victory National Historic Trail Plan from Lake James into Morganton to update it with the Fontaflora State Trail tied in with our existing master plan. And this new plan includes co-branding of the 2 trails, as well as some new landowner sentiment garnered from our landowner meeting that we held a few months back. It follows about the same route from Bridgewater Dam down along the Catawba into town to tie in with the Morganton Greenway. And I know that y'all have gotten a chance to look at that plan. We had introduced it to the planning board for recommendation of adoption to the Board of Commissioners, and that was a unanimous vote to recommend the plan to you all. And I'd be happy to field any questions that you have about that.
All right, thank you, Shane. Any questions for Shane concerning this master plan? Hearing none, without objection, this item will remain on the consent agenda. This brings us to item number 8. Again, from Community Development, Watermill Road Access Area, Ramp Project, Grant Resolution, and Memorandum of Understanding. And again, that'll come from Shane.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Community Development Department was approached by members of Resource Institute Incorporated. And the folks who approached us about this grant opportunity were also part of Trout Unlimited during the Catawba Water Comprehensive Relicensing Agreement process. And they were instrumental in getting the funding written in for several different boating accesses down the Catawba River, one of which is Watermill Access, which is an existing boat ramp and access area that is on county property. But the money from the CRA is to upgrade that, improve the access, improve the parking lot. And Burke County signed onto an MOA with Duke Energy to take on that CRA responsibility as well as the dedicated funding for that project. This grant it's through Department of Environmental Quality and Water Infrastructure, and what it's going to allow us to do is essentially double our funding. It's a 50-50 match, so we'd be using the money that we already have in the account that's earmarked for this project to get another $69,000 to increase the budget that we need to do the project correctly to allow us to re-gravel the parking lot, expand its access, add a few extra spaces that will also accommodate trail parking as an eventual destination for the Lake to Morganton section of the Fauna Flora State Trail and Over Mountain Victory National Historic Trails, as well as the boat and trailer traffic and improving the ramp. This agreement is 3 parts. The first one is the resolution that would be from the board to allow us to apply for the grant. There would be a no conflict of interest form that would be part of that, as well as a memorandum of understanding between the county and Resource Institute that allows them to write the grant on our behalf. And that has been under review by the county attorney.
All right. Thank you, Shane. Any questions for Shane on this matter? Gentlemen, you've got the resolution in your package.
Mr. Chairman, a point of clarification, did I hear correctly that you said the budgetary effect is $62,550, but that will be paid by grant money that's already in place?
Yes, that would be a net increase for the budget. So we have a little over $69,000, I want to say $69,700 in the account currently. The grant match would be for $69,500, and there would be a 10% administrative fee from Resource Institute as part of the MOU that is part of them for writing the grant, which is pretty standard.
But Duke certainly has been a champion for us on those trails, I'm telling you. They've spent a lot of money, $2.3 million. Thank you, I appreciate that.
Any other questions for Shane? All right, hearing none, this item will remain on the consent agenda without objection. This brings us to item number 9, General Services, resolution in support of merger regionalization feasibility grant application, drinking water. This will be presented by Miles Champion, our General Services Director. Afternoon, Miles and Shane.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I had been asked to assist the General Services Department in applying for 2 grants through Department of Environmental Quality. First one is for merger and regionalization feasibility study for our drinking water system. And what that is we'll be applying for $50,000 to conduct a study to look at our water and wastewater systems within the county, and assess kind of where we are, take a big picture shot of that, and look at the possibility of continuing with the system or regionalizing that system with another utility.
All right. Thank you, Shane. Gentlemen, you've had this information in front of you. Any questions for Shane or Miles on this item? Hearing none, this item will remain on the consent agenda without objection. And item number 10, I think Shane has already kind of alluded to. Same idea, except it deals with wastewater, where the item 9 was dealing with drinking water. Am I correct on that, gentlemen?
You are correct, Mr. Chairman. And I'll just add that the grant requires that these two systems be separated, so we'd be writing two separate grants, each for $50,000 for a total of $100,000.
All right. Any questions on item number 10? All right. Hearing none, this item will remain on the consent agenda without objection. Thank you, gentlemen. Item number 11, General Services, renewal of annual cleaning contract. This comes from Miles from General Services. Miles?
Yes, our cleaning contract expired June 30th, so we're asking for a one-year extension to contract with Patton Cleaning Company. The amount of cleaning services is $27,102.34 per month. The surface will be evaluated this coming year, and we may bid that out next year. We do have funding for this in this year's budget.
Okay, thank you, Miles. Any questions on this item?
Mr. Chairman, just for clarity again, Miles, I'm assuming that 27,102.34 is no increase over last year per month?
That is correct. There is no increase from last year.
Excellent. You're a good negotiator, huh? Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Miles. This item 11 will remain on the agenda without objection. Item number 12 comes from the Tax Department, Tax Collection Report for August 2018. And Danny will present that information. Gentlemen, it should be on the table in front of you if you haven't had a chance to take a look at it.
That's correct, Mr. Chairman. I handed those out before the meeting. Just to go over them quickly, our motor vehicle, we're at 20.17% of budget. Property tax, we're at 61.56% of budget, which gives us a combined of 57.43. Delinquent taxes, we're at 22.86, and late list penalty, we're at 23.50.
Okay, thank you, Danny. Any questions on this report for Danny? Hearing none, this will remain on the consent agenda without objection. Then item number 13, Tax Department, Release Refund Report for August 2018. Danny?
This one is, and I just want to make sure everybody's aware of this, the report's a little bit high. We're at $220,712.93 is what the TR 304 reports as releases. We had $7,305.34 in rebills, which give us a net amount of $213,407.59. In releases, we had refunds in the amount of $686.16. There were 0 VTS adjustments. But just to bring it to your minds, because everybody will say, well, that's a really big release amount for Burke County. We had one aircraft that caused this. We got the report from the city of Hickory Airport that lists all the aircraft that's on their site, and they listed one that must have been parked there at one point in time, but it did not belong on their situs list. So that created a rather large release. It was not an error on my staff, it was an error on somebody else's staff.
Mr. Chairman? Yes. You may remember they had a tornado go through there a little while back, and it tore up one of the hangars, and that's probably why that plane had to relocate. So that may have been what happened.
Possibly so.
Thank you. Any questions for Danny on this item? All right, hearing none, item 13 will remain on the agenda without objection.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, Danny. This brings us to items for decision. First item on the decision agenda is the Board of Elections poll worker additional funding. This will be presented by Debbie Mace, our Director of Elections. And Anthony going to join her also. Hello, good afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. This is our new board chairman, Anthony Iovino, and he's fairly new to the election processes, so I'm tagging along to talk to y'all about this. I'd like one time just to have good news to talk to you about, but I don't seem to be able to find that. It's all about money for elections and how the state puts it down to the county level. I had originally, when the General Assembly passed these 12-hour early voting days, it took us all by surprise. I'm not kidding you. I cannot imagine 12-hour days for 13 days, but it's a reality. And they didn't ask us. It was put upon us. So my first thought was, first of all, how can we expect workers to work 12-hour shifts? But then I thought, where am I going to find 2 shifts? I have to beat the bushes, and I'm not kidding. I have to literally beat the bushes to get poll workers. Over 65% of our poll workers are 65 plus years of age, which I'm not knocking. They're wonderful poll workers. But most of them cannot pull 13 days, regardless of hours. 13 days is a commitment. So I'm going to have to try to tweak that. Obviously, it can't be done this election year because I don't have the time to do it and try to find enough people. I'm hoping I can, but I can't make that promise. I did not have but one that could not work the 12 hours for early voting, and he had 4 or 5 other boards he was on, and they met after 5 o'clock. So I understood and just had to take a less number there at that precinct. Now, I've worked with Margaret, and we, honestly, she's a godsend. She's very easy for me to work with. We came up with, or she actually put everything that I gave her together, and she came up with 9360. I had quoted 11,000. That was a quick quote. But what I included in is something that usually happens, not always, but every once in a while the senior center in Morganton will get in trouble. They'll have 20 curbsides at one time, or they'll have lines back. That is our biggest precinct. It's bigger than we are at the Board of Elections. So occasionally I have to call in reinforcement. And if I have to do that, that's where the other, $1,640 came in, or whatever, the difference between 11 and 9360. So that's why I rounded it to 11. I can't give an exact figure because I don't know what the turnout's going to be. I do the best I can. I have done for 13 years. I've worked with these poll workers, and I know how hard it is to find them. The parties don't even turn their lists in anymore. I have to find them. So with that being said, I'm asking for $11,000. Any questions? I'll be glad to try to answer them. Quit grinning, me. It's like, well, you always ask for money, and I know I do. I'd love one time to be able to come in here with some good news.
Thank you, Debbie. Any questions for Debbie on this side?
Mr. Chairman, it's not necessarily about this, but may I ask a question of the over 65% poll workers who are 65 years old? Any ideas what we might do to attract younger age to help in that purpose?
The problem we're having is most younger people are either still in school or they work a job and their job just says, I can't do without you that day. You know, we're having a lot of that. They can't risk their job, even though there's some places that it's illegal for them not to let them off. Still yet, they feel kind of threatened if I go in and say I need this day off to work the polls. I have had some take days But, you know,
Could
that's.
we as a board appeal to employers if it's possible to allow some of their employees to?
I really don't have the interest, Maynard, for that, for the younger crowd. I really don't. I wish we did, because technology, you know, is growing by leaps and bounds, and some of us older people kind of get left behind, you know, if we don't climb on board.
That's true.
So, but I don't have the younger, I've even put flyers up in the college. I've tried advertisement, public service announcement. I've tried putting flyers even at churches, big churches with youth. But I'm just not getting anywhere. Nobody's interested.
Well, if you think of something that you think we could do,
I'd be happy.
that would be helpful. Let us know.
Yes, sir, I sure would.
Thank you.
And if anybody knows of any good possible precinct workers, send them my way.
Debbie, how many early voting polls do we have?
5.
5. Any thought at trying to reduce that number any? Would that be something to consider going forward?
We have talked about that. You could do it in everything, maybe, but a presidential. To go into a presidential without 5 sites would be awful. The lines would be out the door.
Even at 13 days?
Oh, an early voting, yeah, 13 days, it still would be long lines. If it's a small election, a primary, you never know how to plan on a primary. The minimum we can use is 3, but we had 4 at the last primary, and honestly, you know, the turnout was terrible. But had I put the minimum and the turnout being what a primary should have been, then where would we have been? You'd have had lines around the building. And you don't want that in the state's eyes, which is who sends our mandates down to us. They want us to take care of the voters. So but that is a possibility. We are, the board and I, we're talking about that. We've rolled that around several times. And I think this might help with that decision. I certainly don't have anything against, as long as I can get it back for presidential. Now, that's my personal opinion. That's not speaking for my board. But I personally don't see anything wrong with that in the near future, you know, except at a presidential.
Okay. Other questions or comments on this?
Mr. Chairman, let's carry that one step further. Debbie, this is going to be a blue moon election, right?
Who knows?
This is a blue moon election.
You think this is the one and only time
This is the blue moon elections. There's no statewide presidential, there's no U.S. Senate,
right.
There's no governor. It's typically known as a blue moon election.
Okay, never heard that term before.
Okay, we have them every 12 years. Okay, this will be a blue moon election. Do you think, well, you don't have the data with you since you didn't know that. Our turnout's been relatively low. I would suggest, I'm asking that you go back to your board and present the fact that this is a blue moon election, and I think they should at least consider what turnout has been, and turnout will probably even be lower since this only happens every 12 years, and there's no driver, real driver, since you don't have a governor, since you don't have a senator, since you don't have a U.S. Senate, no president. Like you said, presidential's a totally different animal, and that's the big one. So if we would consider that, the thing that I look at is Catawba County has 105,000 or 104,000 registered voters. They use 5 early voting sites. We only have 58,000. We use 5 early voting sites. And if you look at the turnouts that we've had over the past years, our turnouts have been much lower. I was hoping that, you know, since there's only like 2.8 miles difference between your senior center and your building, you know, could your building maybe handle it, or could it all be handled at the senior center? I'm just asking if the chairman, the new chairman, and the director, if you can get together and take a look at some of that data, maybe that would help us out a little bit. We don't want to keep anybody from voting, but maybe we need to make another location somewhere else to make it even more convenient for those that are voting. You don't plan on opening on except the last Saturday. You're not going to open any Saturdays or Sundays prior to that, like Catawba County
Our
has,
board
right?
did not want any other weekend days. They could have said go straight through 17 days.
I appreciate you not doing that.
But we did not do that.
Okay.
Now, let me answer back with some of the things you said. Catawba County has a lot larger buildings, if you'll check their one-stop sites. I don't know how many large sites like that we could find. And when I say that, I don't mean just the building. We couldn't combine the senior and us because, first of all, the parking lot wouldn't hold it. And if I have to go on a presidential, if we're going to move a precinct or close something, I have to remember presidential in my mind. It would not take it. There's times we don't even have anywhere to park if it's during a water school or some of these big nursing days. I mean, it's a nightmare. You know that.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
So, you know, we have to look at a whole lot of other things besides the buildings. Now, Glen Alpine was our last one added. You know, we fought that for years. Some thought we needed it, some thought we didn't. Yes, it's a small precinct, and yes, after talking with my board, we have talked about if we need to close a site, that's going to be it. Now, the people up around the lake in the top part of Burke County is going to sling a fit, but so be it, if that's what we need to do. I'm sorry. Go ahead, John.
May I ask you how many workers you plan to have? Are you going to have the identical numbers at each of these 5 locations working?
There'll be 4 at Glen Alpine. There'll be 4. I want 5, but I don't have the 5th one yet at our site because we don't do that job in ours too. I mean, we wouldn't be able to handle that. Hildebrand, I think, has 4. My mind's gone blank. Rutherford College has 4. In a presidential, we add 1 more at each site.
Okay.
So we cut 1 down. Minimum's 3. I don't like minimum because of lines. I get the state upset when I do that.
Well, let me go one step further. How many machines will be at each place?
Okay, Glen Alpine will have 3. The senior center will have, I don't remember, John, if it's 5 or 6, because we put 8 and 9 at presidential. There'll be 5 or 6 at our place. So I'm bringing machines down. I go through this every election. I think, how can we cut back on funds to keep from, believe me, I'd just about rather face the firing squad than sit where I'm at today. Because it's money, money, money. I'm going to look to the future and hope we can do something. If they keep these unreasonable hours, then my board and I, we're going to have to talk about it and see what we can come up with. And if any of y'all can help me find people, please send them my way. Because I'm having to beat the bushes.
Thank you, Debbie.
Thank you all.
Other questions for Debbie?
Not a question, but she mentioned the word machine. I just wanted to tell you if we're going to be under the burden of putting those paper ballot machines in there, I wanted to tell you that they had a booth, a couple of them had a booth at the convention, and I got the chance to view a couple of them. But just, I thought about you when I walked in the booth and looked at those machines. So.
And I know it's not part of this, but since you mentioned machinery, our machines were set to expire September 19th of 19. Well, they extended it to get us through the November election, so now they expire December of 19. We're still going to have to buy the same year. We don't even know what yet exactly. I mean, they haven't even certified everything. We don't even have a ballot for this election yet. They're supposed to go out Friday. So we are hurry up and wait on the General Assembly and the State Board. So we're sitting.
Okay. Questions? Other comments? All right. Thank you, Debbie and Anthony, for being here.
Thank you all.
All right. We've got 3 items listed, Lance, but I don't see it. I think that's just a computer. Let's call that a computer error, Mr. Manager. Item number 2 will actually be clerk appointment to the planning board, and that'll come from Lance.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. For the Burke County Planning Board, the terms of appointment for Rick McClurd, seat number 1 in the east, Richard Owensby, seat number 4 west, and Richard Evie, seat number 6 west, ended September 30th, 2018. Mr. McClurd and Mr. Owensby have served the maximum number of terms allowed. However, Mr. Evie is eligible for reappointment. Further, seat number 7, alternating east, is vacant. Presently, there are no applications on file for seat number 1 and seat number 7, and there are 2 applications on file for seat number 4 west. And the terms are for 3 years with a 2-term maximum, and from the planning board, they have requested that they do not remove Richard McClurd from the roster until a new a replacement is found. And I've spoken with a gentleman this morning who has expressed interest in joining the planning board, and there'll be an update for the regular meeting.
All right. Thank you, Lance. Okay, gentlemen, you've heard this information. So we will have one election there that we'll need to decide for seat number 7, I believe. 4, seat number 4. Any questions on this item? All right, hearing none, this item will remain on the decision agenda. All right, this brings us to item number 7. I'll remind you, if you have any reports that you want to be included in the package for our normal agenda meeting for September, please get those to Kay by September the 10th so she can get those in place in the agenda package. I don't know of any other items for discussion. Any other things we need to hear today? Well, I know at 5:07, everybody hates to do it, but I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. All in favor say aye. Aye. All right. Thank you for being here and enduring the 2-hour-plus meeting, along with choir practice and other things that we had going on.